Hi, so this is challenge number 2, day 2 of my 4-day bookselling bootcamp challenge. I'm Derek Murphy. I'm in Montenegro. The sun is directly behind me, so apologies for wearing the sunglasses on a live video. This video, day 2, is about conversion. So yesterday we talked about how you need to know your audience so that you can package and position your book and use the keywords that you need to attract and get the visibility, so that your audience knows exactly what your book is about. That's really important. But the second part is when your book gets found and people actually see your offer, which could be, I call it your core offer, but that could be your Amazon page, it could be on your website if you're trying to get people to sign up to your opt-in. But we're going to focus mostly on your Amazon page. So the problem a lot of authors have is their core offer doesn't convert, which means even if they get their Amazon page in front of the right readers with PR, promotion, advertising, whatever, even if the right readers land on their Amazon page, the Amazon page isn't good enough to convert. It doesn't make the sale. And there's 3 important features. So we're going to talk about the 3 things that boost conversion on your Amazon page. Number 1 is your book cover. So we'll talk about how to make a book cover that sells and attracts your audience. Number 2 is your description or your blurb, which is the second part. And number 3 is your review. So these 3 things matter, and they also are part of a funnel system. So they don't all matter. Well, they all matter in equal amounts, but they don't matter at the same time. So your cover matters first. The first thing people will see, often just as a thumbnail, is your cover and the title. It has to be good enough to communicate what kind of book it is, and it has to be professional enough that it communicates value, because if someone sees a really shitty book cover, they'll assume the inside is also shitty. They'll assume it's not edited, it's not professional, the author didn't care enough about or doesn't know enough about making book covers to make a professional product. It's not, of course, true that a shitty cover means that the story isn't good also, but people will assume that. So you do have to make sure the cover is professional enough to stand out. So talk about some ways to do that. After you've captured their attention and communicated the genre with the book cover and proven professionality and trust and credibility with the book cover, then they're going to look at your blurb. And so your blurb is really important, but most important is the on Amazon you have space for the full description, and that's important for visibility, and they're going to read the whole thing. But the most important is what's above the fold. So on your Amazon page, the first 2 or 3 sentences will be shown above the fold, and then it will show a read more button. So if you haven't already hooked their attention with what's above the fold, they won't click that read more to read the rest of your description, and you've already lost the sale. So that's your hook, and your hook is really important. So we'll talk more about that. And thirdly is the reviews. You need at least 10 reviews before you start marketing. I've seen books that do tremendously well. If you're doing lots of advertising, you have a big launch campaign, it's possible to do more with less, but most book promo sites won't even accept you if you don't have at least 5 or 10 reviews. So you want to get up to at least 10 reviews quickly, and they don't all have to be 5-star reviews. Often, if you just have, even if you have 50 5-star reviews, some readers don't believe all the 5-star reviews. Some readers will look at the 1 and 2-star reviews first and then go back to the 5-star reviews. The lower reviews actually give trust and credibility to the 5-star reviews. If it's only 5-star reviews, they may not believe everything. So you have to make sure that you have kind of a balance. Of course, you can't go out of your way to ask for negative reviews, but sometimes getting a couple negative reviews that don't actually hurt the quality of the book, it kind of depends on your project, but sometimes having a couple low-star reviews that don't actually criticize core things in your book can improve conversion. So don't worry so much if you get a couple of 2 or 3-star reviews. Sometimes that can actually be better for you in the long run, but you want to have a good average. So you want to have mostly 4 or 5-star reviews, and you don't want to have your 2 or 3-star reviews showing up on the first page. What can tend to happen is on Amazon, people can vote for which reviews are more helpful, and sometimes people will tend to vote for the negative reviews if they haven't read the book, if they agree with the negative review. So for example, if you write young adult fantasy and you get something that says something like, this book has a love triangle, and I hate love triangles, so don't buy it. And a lot of people who hate love triangles, they will say that they thought that review was their favorite because they They also don't like love triangles. So you get a bunch of people who haven't actually read your book, who are agreeing with reviews about an issue that they agree with, which can be misleading. So what you don't want is to have a whole bunch of misleading reviews on your home page, because when people land on your book, the reviews that have been voted most helpful are going to show up first. And if you have all your 1 or 2 star reviews on the front of your Amazon page, even if you have hundreds of 5-star reviews, but the ones that are showing up are those handful of critical reviews, I think that's misleading. And so you can get your platform or your audience to downvote those reviews and upvote more authentic reviews. You have to be careful not to mislead readers, but if these reviews aren't really fair in the sense that they don't adequately represent the quality of reviews that real readers are leaving you, it's fair to downvote them. They're still there, but at least they're hidden from your front page. I would do that with reviews that are misleading. If you have a negative review that's spot on and a lot of people agree with it and it really does adequately represent reader reactions to your book, that's something I wouldn't mess around with, because you don't want and again, you're not like hiding or responding to reviews, you're just moving them off the front page. So it's not the first thing that new people see. And I think that's sometimes fair to do and sometimes smart to do. That Amazon page, it really is your main sales page. You do need to pay attention to it. A lot of traditionally published books, because they sell in bookstores, they don't properly look at their Amazon page. So they don't worry about those reviews. They don't look at what's going on with their Amazon page. And that's why most traditionally published books don't sell very well on Amazon, because the publishers aren't paying attention to the Amazon page and the authors don't know enough about selling online to make sure that Amazon page is converting well. So I have a lot of content about these things, but I'm going to go a little bit more in detail about covers, the description, and how to get reviews. Those are the 3 things that are really important. Getting reviews especially is really difficult for a lot of indie authors, so they tend to just give up and say, like, they don't know how to do it. I've seen a lot of cases where they have a crappy cover, they have 15 reviews, it's been published 2 years, and they still only have 15 reviews, and they're spending a lot of money on advertising and marketing, and the money you spend on advertising. I put up a post on YouTube yesterday that said advertising is a waste of time. And the reason it's a waste of time for most authors is that most authors are screwing up the core offer. So if your book isn't converting, if you don't have a strong cover that immediately communicates trust and credibility and the genre or the subject and attracts your target audience, if you don't have a great description that starts with a hook that gets them to read the rest of the description and enough reviews, if you don't have that stuff in your basic Amazon page, it's not going to convert very well, which means even if you spend a lot of money on advertising, even if you get people to click on your ad, which is hard enough, and show up on your Amazon page, most of those people won't convert into buyers of your book. So you're not going to be able to run advertisements profitably because your page isn't converting. So this second day is all about your core offer. And like I said, it's just the 3 basic things, which is cover, description, and reviews. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and then I'm going to give you some more resources that will help you to figure some of those things out. Excuse me for a minute. So like I said, I'm outside in Porto Montenegro. It's really sunny behind me. It's actually it's November now. Happy November. It's day 1 of NaNoWriMo, so I'm also playing around with my NaNoWriMo novel, which I'm really excited about. But to recap, I've already talked a little bit about some of this stuff, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. For book covers, I have tons of resources. I have a free YouTube series on book cover design. I have a lot of templates and videos on DIYbookcovers.com. Basically, the thing that most authors get wrong with their book cover is they want to stand out and do something unique and different because they think their book is a, a unique butterfly or whatever. It's something that doesn't fit into any genres. They want to do something different and unique that's not what everybody else looks like. I see a lot of stuff like, for example, I write young adult fantasy, and the cliched book covers are a girl in a dress in a forest. And that sells really well because it immediately communicates paranormal, dark fantasy. Urban fantasy is a little bit different, but dark fantasy, the kind of stuff I write, the easiest way to communicate that really quickly is a girl with a dress in the forest. So I use that on a lot of my covers. Yes, it's very cliche. Yes, it's overused. but it works pretty well. There are potentially better things you can do if you have the most amazing designer in the world, or a high quality illustrator who does custom art. You can do better, but it's very difficult, and it's probably a risk. So if you don't already have a big platform, it's a risk to do things that are probably going to hurt conversions. There's also a difference between traditionally published stuff and self-published stuff. So if you don't want to, and this is a conversation I've had often in some of my groups, a lot of authors will say they want to copy what traditionally published publishers are doing with book cover design because they want their book to look traditionally published. So for example, in young adult, most traditional publishers do cool, fancy things with the text and with design. So it's like a symbolic cover that doesn't really have people in it. And there are arguments like young adult readers don't like to have people on the covers because they want to imagine themselves in the book cover. Those are fine arguments, but traditionally published book covers are designed for print. They're designed for bookstores, and if you're self-publishing, your book needs to convert well on Amazon, and it needs to convert better than traditional publishers. You have a different market than what traditional publishers are aiming for. Not only a different market in terms of book buying public, there are different shopping habits between the people who are willing to pay $20 for a hardcover in a bookstore and the people who are willing to pay 99 cents or $2.99 for an ebook on Amazon. Not only is it potentially a different market, but that's a different shopping cart. They're using different buyer habits. They're not browsing the bookstore, they're flipping through Amazon pages. You need a different kind of book cover to work and convert well in that space. And so it's a mistake to try to cover traditional publishers who have a big audience, most of the authors already have a big platform. Those fans are going to buy and read those authors' books regardless of the cover. The cover doesn't matter as much. It doesn't have to do as much. If you're self-publishing, or even if you have a small publisher, most of your sales are still going to depend on Amazon. You need your Amazon page to convert really well. And if you're not famous and readers don't know who you are, your book cover has to do 3 times the work. It's going to be responsible for most of your marketing. So if they don't know who you are, they're not going to take the time to read your description or read the reviews if they're not immediately hooked by your cover. So the cover is far more important for indie authors than it is for traditionally publishers, and you don't want to copy what traditional publishers are doing because your marketing is going to be a totally different reader experience. So what you need your cover to do is be clear and not clever. It needs to immediately communicate the genre to readers and be obvious to readers, and that's something you need to do. So you don't want to necessarily look at what traditional publishers are doing, and you don't necessarily want to look at what self-published authors are doing, because a lot of self-published authors sometimes have really ugly covers that are still selling really well, because self-published authors tend to be smarter about marketing online. So they may be doing a big promotion that sells really well. You want to look at the top 20 in your category and see what they're doing. You want to look for similarities. You don't want to avoid the tropes and the cliches with cover design. You want to embrace them and do better. You want to look at what's selling. Like, I have girl in dress in forest book covers, but I try to make them better than most other book covers. And still, I mean, most of my covers, they look ridiculously obvious. Like, this is ridiculously obvious and cliched, but readers know exactly what it is. They know exactly whether it's the kind of book they want to read, and they're going to like it enough. It's going to be attractive enough to get them to read the description. And so that's a big win for me. If I don't have a huge audience, my cover is going to do a lot of the work, and I don't need to spend as much money on marketing or advertising. So even though it's cliched and overused, it's still very effective. And so that's what you really want to focus on, is an effective cover, not a creative. The cover is not the space for you to be creative and do something new and different and interesting, or try to get, there's a question here, recent book discover, good question. There's a question about the book description changes I did. I'm going to talk about description later, so I'll talk about that. With book covers, it's difficult, and also you don't want to commit to doing one thing. What usually happens is authors commit to doing something, they usually make a mistake, and they commit to trying to do something new and interesting, and it doesn't work. So you can as an indie author, one of the cool things that you can do is you can update your cover. So if you launch and 6 months or a year later you're not selling and you think the cover is the reason, you can add a new cover. It's really simple to just add a new cover on Amazon. On Kindle, you can just add a new cover anytime. It's really easy. On print, you can do the same thing. It's a little more difficult if you want to change the title. Recently, I changed the title of one of my books because also with titles, you want to be clear and not clever. So I was using clever titles. One of my time travel books was called Prescient. One of my other books is called Orpheum. Those are kind of not obvious titles. So I'm changing them to really obvious titles like Prophet of Doom, and the Orpheum I'm going to change to like Music and Madness, or something that's a little more obvious that communicates what's going on in the novel, so that people, and also because if I have titles that are hard to pronounce or hard to spell, that's going to make it more difficult for people to talk about my books, which is a mistake. So I made those mistakes, and I'm going back and changing the titles and changing the book covers. If you change the title for your print book cover, you're going to need a new ISBN also, so you're going to have to scrap your CreateSpace project and get a new CreateSpace project and a new ISBN, which is a pain in the ass, but might be worth doing. I would test the covers first, but then if you also think it's the title, change the title. For book covers, I've updated my covers for my books like 5 times. I've tested out lots of covers, and sometimes the cover isn't the thing that's going wrong, but often it is. And if you get a slightly better cover that increases conversion, you know, sometimes I try to keep my books selling in the top 10,000. If you're not selling in the top 10,000 on Amazon, you're probably not really making money on your books. So I try, like, if I can't easily stay in the top 20 or 30,000, then there's something wrong with my project. One of my books, Prescient, was a time travel young adult dystopian, and for some reason, I just couldn't get it to stay in the top 100,000. It just doesn't work very well. So I'm still testing things out and trying to get it to do better. Now with advertisings, it's in the top 50,000. So I've made improvements. It's not where I want it to be yet, but it's doing better. So cover design, like I said, I have lots of resources that you need to. Don't be afraid to test things out. Don't be afraid to make changes, but focus on making it clear and obvious and trope heavy. You don't want to be a copy of any other cover. You don't want to be like obviously a copy of one other book, but it should look kind of like the other 20 bestsellers in your genre, and that's totally fine. You still want to be unique and beautiful and different, but you want it to fit in, not stand out. So that's number 1, book covers. I'm going to move into number 2, which is description. Allow me to take a sip of Coke. I'm drinking Coke Zero because I'm also trying to do a sugar fast these 2 weeks while we're staying in Montenegro, which is hard for me because I'm a sugar fiend and addict. I usually just live on cookies, especially if I'm trying to get a lot of writing done. Number 2, description. So like I said in the video yesterday, it's really important to use keywords and positioning tools so that when readers read your description, they know not only they can find it because you're using keywords that they're searching for, but also you're saying things like, this book is a young adult dark fantasy romance for fans of Hunger Games and Twilight. Like, you have to make it pretty obvious so that readers can picture in their head where to place this book. Like, what other books is it similar to, where it belongs on the bookshelf. It's important to use those in your book description. But also your description has to make them want to read the book. So it's not a summary of the story, and you don't want to give too much away, and you don't want to be too vague. So by vague, like, you don't want it to be a summary that sounds like 100 other different books that they've read. You want to hit and highlight a lot of the specific USP, the unique selling proposition, so that you want to hit some of the unique features of your story. So if it's like Twilight or Hunger Games, but it has, 3 things that make it really different, you want to get into the specifics of why your story is similar but different. And you want to get into the specifics where you really talk about and describe the characters, the setting, the scene in very specific detail so that they can picture it. You want to plant pictures in their head where they can really picture what's going to happen in your story, and also hint at the conflicts. So the character conflicts between the stories, the romantic conflicts. Almost always for young adult, there's a romantic element, and almost always it's some and this is true for romance in general, but usually for romance it's enemies that turn into friends that turn into lovers. So two characters where they hate each other at first, where the guy is an arrogant asshole, but he's powerful, he's a prince or something, and then for whatever reason he opens up and falls in love with the protagonist. That's very common in young adult fantasy. It's a trope, it's a cliche, but readers like it, so you want to hint at that core conflict and romantic element in the description. With your description though, like I said earlier, the hook is really important. So what's above the fold on Amazon, the first 3 sentences, is really important, because if that doesn't hook their attention and get them to read the rest of the description, you've lost that sale. They have to click on the read more to read the rest of the description. So I used to say that you needed your story hook. So that's I've seen a lot, there's different ways you can do this. I've seen like a bolded 3 phrases like irresistible romance, a doomed empire, a poisoned prince, like 3 short phrases that sum up all the core conflict in your story in bold on top. That can work. I've also seen like a hook sentence where one sentence describes the chief conflict and hooks your attention in bold. That can be important. That could be the hook. I've also seen, and I used to say, start with the story first and add the credibility boosters at the end. But I've recently, I used KD Analytics, which is a site that analyzes different genres and gives you some data on what's going on in your genre. So I looked through the top 20 bestsellers in my category, and I noticed that a lot of them were using credibility boosters first. So what I mean by that is reviews and positioning statements, awards, how many downloads or sells it's gotten. This is hard to do if you're launching and you don't have any of those yet. So if you don't have those, start with story hooks. But if you do have some of those, and you can add those first and let readers know that your book is already selling really well, that readers already really like it, that can be important to get them to read more. As long as, like if you just use reviews that just say, this is a great book, I liked it, that's not good enough. But if you have a review, for example, some of my reviews position my book really well. So they say this book is Twilight meets Hunger Games, or Shades of Vampire meets Divergent. Like if you have a review that positions your book really well and makes it clear what your book is about and what it's similar to, that can be a really great hook, not only to boost credibility and trust, but also to position your book and let readers know what it's about. So if you get some reviews like that and you put them first, that can be really helpful in the above the fold. So you want to have in your description, you want to have some story, you want to have some story hooks. You want to not give everything away. You want to get them to read more and be interested enough to buy the book, but you also want to add in some reviews or some credibility boosters in the description. I've heard that Amazon doesn't allow you to add reviews into the description in some cases, so you want to be careful with that. But most best-selling authors are doing that. Most traditionally published authors are doing that. That doesn't seem to be a problem. You can also go into Author Central, where there's a space for editorial reviews, and that's a place where you can take some reviews from other best-selling authors. You're not allowed to trade reviews, but if you have author friends who are USA Today bestsellers and they give you a review, you can add that into your editorial description on Author Central. It will show up in your Kindle description. So that's 1 and 2. Number 3 is reviews and getting more reviews. And this can be a difficult process. So I'll tell you the ways that I've been able to get over 1,000 reviews on my books. Most of my books have over 100 reviews. I started out by book giveaways. So something I talk a lot about with book marketing is building genre-specific lists with book giveaways, which means I give away a package of 10 other best-selling books in my genre. I advertise to readers who like authors and those books and those genres, and they see my giveaway. So it's a really easy sell for them because it's a free thing. All they have to do is sign up and share. It's easy for me to build a list that way. It costs some money, but not they're worse ways to spend money and not get any results. This provides really good results for me. So I build a big targeted list of people who want to win those books, and then I offer them a free book. I do lots of free books. So I give away free ARCs to those lists that I built, and I say, I hope you like this free book. If you like it, please leave a review. You can, if you don't want to give away free books in KDP, if you don't want to join Kindle Unlimited and give away free books that way, you can put a free book on BookFunnel and give away ARC copies. So I've done that. You have to give away generally, and this is why most authors don't have reviews, is that most readers don't review, and even if they like your book, most readers aren't going to review. You generally need to give away 100 books to get one review. If you give away 10 ARC copies, you can't get angry at the 7 or 8 people who didn't review your book, because most people aren't going to have time, or they didn't like your book enough to review. And you can't get annoyed or frustrated or expect that people will leave you positive reviews. You have to be willing to give away more ARC copies. ARC is advanced reader copies, but generally if you give 100 ARC copies away, you might get less than 5 reviews. So what you have to do is give away 500 copies, 1,000 copies. I don't think you are cannibalizing sales, because you want to build a fan base of at least 1,000 people who love your writing and want to support you. So the way to do that is to give them free books so that they can read your work for free and leave you reviews and become fans. And there are probably hundreds of thousands of potential readers for your genre, for almost any genre, fiction and nonfiction. I think the market, even for small markets, is potentially 100,000. So don't be afraid of giving away 1,000 books. I tend to give away like 5,000 books when I launch one of my new books. I've done this in the past because I didn't have a platform, I didn't have a fan base. Now that I have a fan base, I will stop giving away so many free books, and I will start launching at paid books or discounted books, because I know my fans will buy it because they've already read a lot of my books and they like my fiction. But when you're starting out and you don't have a fan base, or you're not getting reviews, giving away books is the easiest way to build a fan base and get reviews. So don't be afraid to do that. It's also a lot cheaper than marketing your books. If you're just trying to sell your books with advertising, you'd have to sell 1,000 copies to get 100, 10 to 100 reviews. And that's going to take a lot of time and effort and money, and you should be writing. So it's much easier to start out. I had all of my books for free for the first 6 months, which is how it was easier for me to get a lot of reviews. In general, you'll be able to get 40 times, I heard this from Mark Coker of Smashwords, but in general about 40 times the downloads for a free book as a paid book, so even at 99 cents. So if you have a free book, and it doesn't necessarily, if you're just doing it for list building, you can give away a perma-free book that's a short teaser or a half book or excluded scenes. It doesn't have to be your main book, but it is good. It is really important to have some free content that readers can download to get on your list so that you can offer them more stuff. That works really well, and you should do that. So you want to get reviews, you want to build a big list. There's some kids playing around here, but I'm going to keep going anyway. So giving away free content, doing book giveaways with advertising to get people to sign up to your list to offer them a free book, and also to do list trades, which just means I can build a big list and then reach out to other authors who also have a big list and say, I'll promote my book, my free offer, my free promotion. If you promote my book to your list, you can do that. So instead, if you build a list of 1,000 readers of your genre and you partner with 20 other authors who have lists of about 1,000, you can reach lots of readers that way. The third way I've seen done is there are services. You can look at reviewers who have reviewed similar books on Amazon and try to get their contact information. This used to be easier, now it's harder. There are services like BookRaiser who will do this for you, so you can pay them for like 500 potential leads, and then you can reach out to those leads and offer them a free book, and hopefully you'll get some reviews that way. There are also some tools where you pay for the tool and then you can just do it yourself, and it's called data scrapping, but it searches through reviews on Amazon to see if it can pull any contact information. It is not against Amazon TOC to give out ARC copies. There's questions. Good question. Giving out ARC copies if you're in KDP Select. No, it's not illegal. It's illegal to give away free books on other book platforms. Technically, even you should be careful with InstaFreebie and BookFunnel, but as long as it's behind an opt-in wall, which means people can't just download the book, they have to sign up your email list to get the book. And if you're giving away an ARC copy, which you just have to say this is an advanced reader copy, it's not for sale, then it's fine to give it away to ARC readers. You also, to be careful, it used to be the case where you had to, readers, if they got a free book in exchange for a review, they had to write on their review, I got this book in exchange for a review. Now, those kind of reviews will be deleted from Amazon. So now you can't do that because you're not allowed to do anything in exchange for a review. You can't give away a free book, even a free book, in exchange for a review, because it's like paying for a review. What you have to do is give away tons of free ARC copies, not in exchange for a review. You're just giving away free copies to readers in the hopes that they might leave a review. But you have to make it clear that you're not expecting or demanding a review. You're not expecting a 5-star review. You're not trading a book for a review. You're just giving away free books. This is also why I like to do free campaigns or to give away tons of free books. And I remind them, if they liked it, to leave a review, but it's not in exchange for a review. And you might also want to tell your readers not to write in exchange for a review on the review, because that will probably get deleted from Amazon. So those were basically the 3 ways. I think I said 3 ways to get reviews. I give away lots of free books. I do book giveaways to build an email list. I trade promos with other authors in my genre. This is why building relationships with authors in your genre is so important. It's why I started the Young Adult Authors Alliance, which now has 2,000 members, so that we can support each other. It's important to be building networks or reaching out to other authors in your genre and be partnering and doing these things together, because that's really effective book marketing. And also data scraping, which sounds really like a gray hat tactic. Most reviewers who leave contact information on Amazon are people who review lots of stuff and probably don't mind being contacted. You want to be really careful reaching out to them, and you don't want to be spamming them, and you are cold emailing them. So it's not spam as long as you're not trying to sell them something, and they're probably not going to mind if you're very polite. If you just say, hey, I noticed that you reviewed this other book in my genre. I wrote a pretty similar book. I would love to give you a free copy. I hope that if you like it, you would consider leaving a review. You don't want to spam them. You can email them once. You might want to check back a couple weeks later and say, hey, did you get a chance to review it? If they don't respond or they don't open their emails, you don't want to be too persistent. But it's fine to reach out and offer them a free copy. Like I said, you have to reach out to maybe 500 people to get 100 people to take you up on the offer, and maybe 20 people to review it. You also don't want to, excuse me. I also think you don't want to say, if you're interested, write back to me and I'll send you a free copy, because most people won't write back to you, because once someone writes back to you, then it kind of makes them committed. They don't want to commit to a relationship with an author. A lot of indie authors, it's true, can be a little bit obnoxious, in the sense that if I say maybe I'll review your book to an author, the author might check back with me, every week for a year. Why haven't you reviewed my book yet? Not every author is like that, but there are enough of them out there that reviewers are cautious about getting involved with indie authors, because authors can be a little desperate and pushy about promoting their books. So I don't say, write back if you want a free copy. I just say, here's a link, you can download it for free. You don't have to sign up, you don't have to opt in, just download it and check it out. That makes it more likely they're going to at least start reading. And like I said, you have to reach out to 500 people. I'm actually going to be building my potential. I have a list of people I know that are fans of my genre from book giveaways and things like that. I have a list of actual fans who I know have read my fiction, that they sign up when they finish one of my books and they sign up on my actual list. And then I have a list of potential reviewers who review in my genre that I know I have to be really careful about because they're not fans, they don't know who I am, but sometimes I can offer them a free book and they might be interested in reviewing. So the challenge for today, this video has been about book covers, description, and reviews, which are the three things that make up your core offer on Amazon. The challenge, if you've already published a book or you have one book that you want to get a critique of or sell better, I want you to take a screenshot of your Amazon page. The screenshot should just be the cover and how many reviews you have and your above the fold. So if you want to click the button and make a bigger screenshot, click the read more button so we can see more of the description and leave you a bigger screenshot, that's fine. Or if you just want to make a smaller screenshot that's just the book cover and the number of reviews and above the fold. If you have less than 20 reviews, I'm going to say you need to get more reviews. But we're also going to say if the cover isn't immediately, if we can't tell what kind of book it is from the cover and the above the fold and the subtitle and the title, that's going to be a problem. If we're not hooked to want to know more about the book and read more about the description from the hook, that's going to be a problem. So it may be more beneficial to just take a screenshot of the cover and the above the fold so that we can give you feedback. Like if that's not working, if that's not clear enough, you need to fix that. So anyway, take a picture of your Amazon page. I'll give you an example below this, and I'll take a couple screenshots of my Amazon page. You can do that for your book. If you haven't written a book yet, you could, if you have something about your book on Facebook or your website that shows the book cover and a short description or begins with a hook, or if you just want to make like a Word document with your cover and your hook and your first couple sentences of the description, you can take a screenshot of that and upload that so that we can give you some feedback on that. This is really important stuff. I hope you participate and get some feedback on this. Tomorrow's day 3 of the challenge, and we're going to talk about actually launching and marketing the book to hit #1 in your categories. Thanks. Bye-bye.